Well, welcome everybody. For those of you I haven't gotten a chance to meet yet, I'm Russell Radel. I'm the Education Committee Chairperson this year for the Georgia section. And really exciting, if any of you have been to one of our panel discussions live, we try to have a good time with it. So like I said in the short intro, this is meant to be a fluid discussion. So if you have any thoughts, feedback that you'd like to offer, just kind of give me a little sign, and we'd love to have you speak up and let us know kind of your thoughts on what the discussion is. We've got a great panel here with us. Proud to know everybody. I just met George, but I'm proud to have known the other three pretty well so far. So Elizabeth Clarkson from the Chimneys, owned by the City of Winder. You were also at Chateau Elan for how many years?
18 years.
18 years, so wealth of experience in that, both resort and then now in municipal city-owned. And if you haven't been over there to the Chimneys, holy moly, beautiful. And what she's done with the golf shop there is really fantastic. So should have got you involved in the merchandising thing later, but we'll save that too. So thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Yep, Karl Gross from the Creek at Hard Labor. Parks and Rec owned golf course there in between kind of Lake Oconee, south of Athens, right on 20. Again, like beautiful piece of property. I used to, when I lived out at Lake Oconee, I used to go visit Karl over there. And I mean, it's such a serene piece of property, the beautiful old mill wheel. Great spot if you haven't been out there. George Nealis, Callaway Golf. George, how long have you been fitting with Callaway Golf? I think
5 years now.
Nice.
I've been part-time until this year, and Callaway created a position called performance rep. So I'm fitting and scheduling events as well all over the state. So
nice. And prior to that, were you in the golf industry?
Well, long before, back in Golfsmith days, I was in the golf industry. And then prior to that, no, I worked for a company. I sold copper tubing to
Nice.
plumbing and HVAC supply houses, which that's exciting. So
On the
decided not
sales
to do
side.
that, right?
Yeah, on
Move
the
out of
sales
that,
side.
do something fun.
Oh, that's good. Well,
So
fitting people for golf equipment can be interesting, can't
it's
it?
very interesting. Absolutely, yes.
You know, when we talked to Callaway about some involvement here, with the pandemic side of things, I hadn't even thought about kind of reaching out to hard goods, and it really kind of, sneaky one of probably some really interesting insight, from your side, because it's just different than, it's like me being on the sales rep side. It's different than green grass. You kind of see it from a different light. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And kind of why we had Scott Geary. Originally, Scott Geary was going to be here to facilitate this. But the more and more it came up, the more and more it seemed like the insight from the section was going to be really important here, because what I hope the group hears is about what the PGA's one perspective on kind of how everything's played out and what our plans are as we continue to move forward. So that was way longer of an intro than I meant it to be, but thank you all for being here. We're going to start. Let's see, you got this nice group of questions here. I mean, this is the best laid out set of questions I've ever had. Now that we see the increase in play is not limited to the pandemic, what measures have you taken to capitalize on the increased demand? Sorry, Elizabeth, you got to start on this one.
That's okay. So for us at the Chimneys especially, our goal lately has not been customer acquisition. We have plenty of golfers right now, which is a good problem to have, but our focus has been on really retaining those golfers and making sure that your first-time customers are not just a one-time customer, that they continue to return at your facility. So it's a matter of making sure that those dollars that are being spent at your facility are capitalized on in regards to maybe it's retail operations, but we don't even have a food and beverage really operation at the Chimneys because we don't have a restaurant. We have a snack bar. A great variety of candy bars, but it's a matter of making sure that your existing customer is utilizing your facility for practice and spending more money in your clubhouse, and maybe it's with programming or some other ideas that you might have to keep them engaged. But I think that's one of those things that, especially after like the Tiger era where golf was booming, that we see that was a big, that we didn't really retain those customers very well, because as soon as the market crashed in '08, all of a sudden they either couldn't afford to play our sport anymore, but for some reason they weren't involved. Where now I feel like we're in a good, semi-good economic place to hopefully retain those customers, but engaging in programming and what you have to offer at your facility is important.
Yeah, Karl, I want to hear what you have to say on this, and then I got a thought here.
Similar lines to what Elizabeth is doing. We kind of key on advanced tee time since we're the state park public facility, and our niche is stay and play packages because we have cottages on site. So that's our built-in repeat customer that we really key and go after. And then to retain the local guy, 9-hole leagues. I have two nightly leagues after work, 5 o'clock shotgun, works out very well. So that's kind of been rinse and repeat for us.
Yeah. Really cool being at both of y'all's facilities at different times and seeing, diversity is a bad way to say it, but the different age groups of folks that are there.
Yeah.
Karl and I joke about who's buying the hats, right?
Right.
And it's, you see a bunch
it's
of...
all over the chart, so it's interesting because our mid-morning guy is that senior person. Later in the day, the younger they get for us. So it's different at every facility, but that's kind of the trend we see.
Elizabeth, is that consistent at the Chimneys?
Yeah, I mean, our variety of customers is just tremendous. We have everything from, your youngest juniors, beginners, to seniors. And it's such a variety that we have. One of the biggest things that we did really to make sure that we're maximizing every dollar spent at our facility, especially in greens fee revenue, was that we implemented demand-based pricing that completely, if you're not doing that yet, I can't even begin to tell you how you're not maximizing your potential there. But that was just, the majority of our revenue was really accelerated when we did demand-based pricing for just your greens fee revenue. Mm-hmm. So that way there's always an opportunity for every type of customer to maybe fit into your day part or maybe just a different day of the week, but you're not cannibalizing your most active times by selling them short by your fixed rate. So that was probably the biggest game changer in revenue for us with just greens fee revenue.
And no guy who is used to showing up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday is complaining that, hey, holy cow, like it costs
Well, that's
X
the thing though, is like, let's say you're always going to have some people complain about rate changes, and we definitely battled through that when we first implemented those changes. But even though you've got some people who you might lose for that day part, maybe they're going to fit into a better place somewhere else, and let's say maybe that specific customer is no longer a 9 a.m. on a Saturday customer, because that's your highest demand-based price time period, somebody else is going to fit in the mix instead. So that we're fortunate that we're in that era right now where golf is just booming so much that you can afford to maybe upset some of your customers for maybe their favorite tee times, but nudge them maybe to like the 11 o'clock spot or vice versa. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And George, how's, from your view, how's Callaway Golf kind of, making sure that they're maximizing what's out there right now? It sounds like you're scheduling times. What things have you seen change?
So, from my, I would kind of say like the position that they created, my position, they created that in 15 markets around the country. Part of it is to take that portion, the scheduling, off of our outside sales reps' plate, right, for them to be able to sell more. But that's also to maximize the number of events we can get out there. Like more events, we want more events, more fitting events at these green grass accounts because there's more people playing and there's higher demand. So, and then also, right, coming out of, pre-lockdown, if you will, when it was just demo day and tire kickers and people running around everywhere and not really buying anything, to having a scheduled fitting event to where a link will be sent out from your pro shop and for your customer, for the clients to sign up and make an appointment online. That way, if they're willing to take the time to make an appointment, the percentage of them buying is quite a bit higher, right? Yeah. So.
And I got to assume that the golf professionals on site are appreciative of that added layer of service.
It's so much easier to host things like that because the technology is there to not hassle us with a paper sign-up sheet
Right.
at the desk. So
Yeah.
and plus the ordering process, is so much easier as well. They may not order on site, but maybe they've got the specs and they come back later, but we can go into something like Callaway Connect and plug in the specs and then place
And
the
that's a
order.
big thing that Callaway we're still working on it, right? We got an entire team working on, it's what we have an engaged system that we use in the field that we can enter all the information, which is immediately in her account in the pro shop. And then we also have the information, so it's not gonna get lost. And then a week later, if the customers that was kicking the tire, if you will, comes back to Elizabeth and says, you know what, let's go ahead and order that. You're not gonna run all over the place trying to find the info to get the order. She can open up the Connect account, and there it is right there, and she just hits order. It's
Yeah.
off and running, so,
That was a big change. That was
yeah.
really helpful. So Scott, now it's on you. Like, what type of programming is the Georgia section or the PGA as a whole? Like, what are they offering to our members, to help us kind of maximize things?
Yeah, and I think, all of us know PGA of America is the largest member sports organization in the world, 29,000. And golf was the first sport to open up after the pandemic. So really it was on the sport of golf and the PGA of America and sections to get ahead of how do we capitalize on this renewed interest in golf, this spike in golf. And PGA of America did a great job right away coming up with a campaign of make golf your thing. I think one thing, prior to my job, I worked on a different side in golf, in junior golf, but one thing I think gets lost sometimes with folks who they enjoy playing the game and say, hey, maybe I want to make a career out of this, is there are so many different options to work in this sport. I mean, it's a $120 billion industry. There's so many avenues you can take. Just look at the panel up here. And so they did a really good job kind of saying, here's how you can go about finding a career in golf and starting that campaign first. And then if you look at the programs that were put into place to allow access, a place to play, the PGA of America is spending millions of dollars to support projects that maybe come into cities and help courses that needed funding, or to come up with new creative ways in which you could attract people to the game and not restrict access. Our headquarters at Bobby Jones Golf Course is a great example of that. It's a 9-hole reversible golf course with one fairway cut height, and it's completely handicapable. I walk on the range and you see every different walk of life hitting balls on the range, from those members at East Lake and Athletic Club to a young 6-7-year-old little girl just getting her first taste of golf. So I think they've done a great job investing in that. Deferred comp is a huge one. I know we've talked about it before, and Seth Waugh really led the charge on this, but there was never really a way to kind of build and sustain wealth in golf for those PGA golf professionals. And now I know some of us in the room are a little older. It may not have quite the effect, but if you're a 23, 24, 25-year-old, starting out as a golf professional, and you get involved in deferred comp, I mean, by the end of that, in 30, 40 years, you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars put away, and that'll set you up for life. A great example is what passed last year at the annual meeting, the PAT, and allowing, you don't have to shoot the qualifying scores 36 holes in one day. If you shoot half of one of those qualifying scores, one of your rounds, as long as in the next calendar year at a PAT you shoot that other qualifying score, now you have that ability to start everything in your path to membership. I know not everybody loves that, but to me, what I think sections in the PGA of America have done a really good job of is starting to think a little broader and figure out how we can be more inclusionary with everything. When you look at PGA Reach, PGA of America's foundation, which we rebranded as PGA Reach Georgia, and some of the programs they have there, I'll take PGA Works, which are sections have a full paid year-long salaried fellowship for folks from diverse backgrounds, giving them a taste of working in golf. We have a young gentleman here, Robert Gregory III, graduated from Morehouse, and he's on staff with us for the full year, getting the full integration into everything we do at the section. And the goal there is to, when he finishes up, to have a job in the golf industry. Our gal last year, she got a job with the Texas Golf Association, their foundation, where she's leading all the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives on their side in Dallas, where she was from. So it got her back home in a job in golf in which she loves it. You know, one thing we're doing too is we started a mentorship program at the section where we have golf professionals, we have merchandisers, we have some folks from the PGA of America who are having one-on-one, a mentor-mentee relationship with young people looking to work in golf. And those are college students, to help them better understand what opportunities are out there. PGA Hope is a great example. I think we're the 3rd or 4th largest section in the country at giving opportunities to veterans to learn the game and be taught by PGA golf professionals. But also, on top of that, they're creating an avenue for those veterans who say, hey, maybe I want to work in the game. And there's an ambassador program once you've graduated through a Hope program that you can represent your section as an ambassador. And then beyond that, they're going to look at hiring them on full-time to represent the regions. And then lastly, I'd say what I've been really impressed with from PGA of America's side is fighting legislature that has come about to limit our growth. And you talk about the contract employees and instructors and water out west. We've done a really good job going and fighting for the golf industry. And then one thing I'll share with you all, I'll talk about tomorrow at the annual meeting, is the allied associations here in the state of Georgia. That's Georgia State Golf, golf course superintendents, and the club managers. We're embarking on an economic impact study. We did one in 2017 in which we found about $1.6 billion golf had an effect on in the Georgia economy. We're going to shatter that post-COVID. But it's really interesting when you think about what a big task that is to really measure. It's not just the rounds at facilities and instruction. You're talking about, we've got tour events here. We've got 97% of the golf carts that are made in the world are made in Georgia. We've got Bridgestone, we've got Mizuno, PGA Tour Superstore, all these big conglomerates. I mean, it's pretty interesting. And what we're going to do is share that information on a day at the Golf Capitol next March, where we'll get in front of our legislators and talk about how important golf here is in Georgia and how it's been thriving since the pandemic. And then we want to create our own website. So if somebody lives here in Georgia and says, I want to work in golf, now they've got somewhere here specific to Georgia that they can go and find a career. So I think all of those, I know that was long-winded, but I didn't even touch on probably 6, 7 others that are happening to take advantage of what's been going on.
Well, most of you guys can skip the annual meeting tomorrow.
No, you can't.
He's sitting there checking the boxes. I'm like, okay, I've heard all of this. No, but that's right. And we've all heard it. What does the PGA do for me? If you listen to, someone like Scott Geary, you cannot help but feel that there's actually a little bit of action behind it, right? There's some passion behind it. And one of the biggest things to me was as a sales rep, I would go from course to course to course, and the main conversation I would hear throughout the pandemic is, I can't find anybody. Where are all the people going? And being on the green grass side before, I always kind of thought that this was a great career path. I hope everybody in the room does. And so I'm glad that the PGA of America has really tried to hone in on the right ways to rebuild the pipeline a little bit. And I'm starting to see it. You're starting to see new young assistants come from different places, people brought in that aren't new and young, kind of coming back to the game or finding the game later in life and finding it as a career option. It's diverse throughout even just our section. So Elizabeth, this one's a little off script, but from a staffing standpoint, are you finding things easing up at all from finding the people that you need? Are you having challenges still? Where do you kind of lie on that spectrum?
I hate to say it, but we honestly don't really advertise much for employment opportunities because they're constantly walking in off the street in our area just being like, do you have any jobs? And as a longtime manager, my favorite way of hiring is via referral. You know, if you've got an existing staff member who's like, I can vouch for this person,
Yeah.
you know, then I feel a lot better about hiring them. You know, so we haven't really had to do much as far as like actual advertising on, you know, PGA and whatnot to bring in different people, but we also operate a very small operation. We have, you know, a dozen staff on golf ops and about 15-ish on golf maintenance side. So we're not a really large crew, but yeah, it's been, aside from just having a lot of customers, which is a good thing, we haven't really been suffering for good people lately either. So I think people, because golf is top of mind for a lot of people.
That's great.
So.
Karl?
I find it hard to get guys on the maintenance crew.
Yeah.
Operational, you know, golf shop and cart staff, pretty steady, but I feel like I'm 8 players on an infield with the baseball team. You know, I'm always one light. So
Is that, I mean, you obviously have meetings with the other park courses. How many park courses are there in
there
Georgia?
are 8 statewide, 3 in North Georgia, 5 in South Georgia.
Which, different conversation, but the Alabama Trail Program, like,
Yeah, it's a total different animal. They're a lot bigger. You know, the thing with the state parks is they were all built for economic development in rural areas. They weren't meant to be a profit center from day one, but over time we've been challenged to be. We're actually all challenged to be costing nothing to the taxpayer.
sweet.
So now,
Good one.
I'm fine where I'm at. Some of the other locations, they just, by virtue of location, struggle. you
Yeah.
know, so they're up against it. But we're fortunate, you know, where I'm at.
Do they, I mean, from what you hear from the other directors, are they having the similar challenges?
Similar challenge, you know, it's more so on the maintenance side for us than operational. And
Do you think
But-
it's anything to do with wages or what
it's
you're able to
definitely
offer?
wage, you know, and that's the other hurdle with being a state agency. It's a set rate based on experience, and most people that walk in the door needing a job in, you know, golf maintenance, even if they're willing to be out there in the heat and driving a zero turn or learn to do a fairway unit, they don't know, so they don't have the skill set. So my arms are tied a little bit in that I can only offer them like 13 or 14 bucks an hour, whereas a skilled person's going to be closer to 20.
Yeah.
But there's that gap, and so, you know, they walk out the door.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm a stepping stone. And I know that when I hire some of the younger ones. I know I've got them for a couple of years and off to college or the next step, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, do what you
sometimes
gotta do.
Sometimes that's okay.
Right.
Yeah, George, so you go to a lot of different clubs. You're like me, we see a lot of different places. What are you seeing out there from a staffing standpoint, not specific to Callaway maybe, but, you know, I mean, you probably have similar conversations that I would have
Yeah.
with folks. What's your perspective on kind of, you know, where people are at?
I see a lot of what Karl was saying. A lot of guys, some maintenance crews struggling a little bit, or some of it lack of funding, but some of it, yeah, they're just struggling to get guys to do the work. So, yeah, I don't see a bunch of it, but I do see some of what Karl is saying.
Yeah.
So, from my standpoint, I'm lucky that we have a good team of fitters in Georgia. Some of my position around the country have not had good teams, and I've heard them talking about struggling to get guys to fit to do the job. So,
'Cause
it's been interesting.
Contract for the most part? I mean, is it pay by the day type of program?
Yeah, it's just an hourly rate,
Yeah.
part-time hourly rate.
Yeah.
So, and they do get mileage for reimbursement for certain trips. You know, it's 45 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
That they'll get reimbursement, but yeah, it's just a basic hourly rate. And if, when I got into it, this was an opportunity for me to get back into this industry and grow with Callaway. So I had a different motivation, but for somebody else that might not have the motivation, we're, you know, pushing these guys to kind of close the sale at an event. But at the same time, in his mind, like, it's not much incentive for him unless he's just, you know, he just wants to own it and
Good dude.
do the thing. Right,
Or lady.
right. But if
Or
he doesn't, yeah, so, right.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to hear from other guys around the country where they've struggled a little bit with it too. So
Well, we won't call out John, but
You should.
it'd be interesting to hear, from a manufacturer standpoint, how
Yeah.
they are looking at recruitment for those key positions, because at the end of the day, they can't sell if they can't fit, for the
That's
most
right.
part.
Right.
yeah,
So yeah, we'll check that one out offline. But Scott, you
Yeah.
got something?
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
have
this
to
is, for me, this is one of the biggest and critical pieces we as an industry have to figure out post-pandemic. Everybody's busier, there's more people playing. A lot of us answer to folks who may not be as ingrained with the golf world. So how do we sell ourselves? How do we sell what we're doing to our owners, operators, our constituents on the importance of compensating staff? What I tell everybody is, look, you can go to the nicest golf course there is. You can go to Augusta, you can go to Pine Valley, and it could be the best golf course you've ever played. But if the staff there doesn't treat you right, doesn't take care of you, doesn't give you a first-class experience, you're not going to enjoy it. And so we have to invest in the people. That's the biggest part that I feel passionate about. And so I've sat in on some hiring for head golf professionals or directors of golf, and sat with committees from the golf course and listened to as they talk through compensation. And it's eye-opening sometimes, or ear-opening, I guess in that case, to listen to what they're talking about. And, oh, this person made X when we hired them. Well, yeah, that was 15 years ago. A lot's changed in the economy since then. And look, we're at a place in our world where folks coming out of college, they want to make money quick and fast. And I'm not saying we have to pay what a Microsoft who's over here pays, but we've got to catch up to the curve a little bit and invest in our people, because it's going to cost you a lot less and cause you a lot less headaches to have to continuously rehire. And so there's no easy, I think, solution. Nobody's going to, Saudis aren't coming to the PGA of America right now. They're not going to give us billions of dollars to hire more people as golf professionals. So we have to carry the torch and carry the message, fill out compensation surveys so that we have the tools to go to folks and say, hey, this is what somebody at this level should be making at this type of club.
I think you really touched on something important there, though, in that it's the rehiring and like trying to refill in those positions. If you lose somebody, that is so expensive. So, if you have good people, you have to invest in those people and push to help those people, because trying to replace that person because they found a better job elsewhere because you're handcuffed by whatever salary maxes or whatever you're able to do. However, you can help that person and try to either invest in them financially or even emotionally, get them more involved with your facility, the cheaper it is overall for your facility to operate, because you don't have, staff acquisition, not only is it expensive, but it's so time consuming to train somebody new. It's, so it's worth investing in your existing people.
And that's where taking on younger folks or new folks to the industry and taking them under your wing and being a mentor can really help. A lot won't go seek it right now. They're not going to, those go-getters will, but it's in my case, I'm seeing it's rarer nowadays for someone to go and seek a mentor. I always tell everybody, have your own personal board of directors, is what I call it. The people that you can call and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, I have this decision, can you help me? Or they're the people that if Carrie Brown and the board decide to let me go tomorrow, that I'm going to call right away and say, hey, I need help. And so grab those younger folks and help them do that. There's two different kinds of turnover. There's turnover because they're bad at their job and they leave and they're unhappy and they didn't put the effort. And then there's elevating them to another position, which all of us should take pride in. When somebody who works under you goes on to something bigger and better.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking of a best practice. I won't name the club, but it's a big 5-diamond resort near the beach. And they're doing the second round of this staff contest where they broke their staff up into two-person teams, and they let their teams design a product for the shop. They bought the same number of units, but they had full creative based on their brand standards to kind of go through and do this. And the first team to sell out of their product got a dinner at the nicest restaurant on the property. And the club makes a bunch of money, obviously from selling the product quickly, but it also has engagement in their staff. And to now in the second iteration of this, to watch the staff grow from the first iteration to the second was really probably the most fun you can have at a job if you have any bit of mentoring in you, because they were engaged, they were all there for the same mission, and some of those jobs can be thankless, and I get it. But this one, they were thanked. And so definitely think that's really cool. I got an ace in my pocket in case the room is quiet, but I hope it's not. Because I said this was going to be a little fluid. You've heard us talk for about half an hour. Does anybody have any insight that they'd like to give on maybe best practices for finding staff, keeping staff in, anything that kind of they thought, man, I'd love to share this. Anybody? Yes.
This will be lame, but I thought of it with the maintenance staff. Trying to bring the maintenance staff and our indoor staff together for a social event. We've done classes in Spanish and English together that were free for everybody that wanted to come. That was aces. But the best thing we ever did was have lunch and bring in a magician. Because,
No way.
because there was no language issues
Yeah.
at all. Everybody could get it, And it was just so lame. I thought that is the best money I have ever spent for what it did for the staff and engagement of the whole team.
That is awesome. Well, and it comes down to two. I think I've been a part of those situations before, and if the leadership of the club is engaged in that, I think that goes a long way, because at the end of the day, everybody wants somebody to lead, right? Everybody wants somebody to look up to and be like, okay, that's our person. And if that person's engaged, right? We've seen it in the section staff. I know you've seen it in your facilities. That may be a great topic. I mean, are there any?
No, our maintenance facility, like the team that we have there, are such good friends with everybody in our golf ops staff. And I've seen it completely opposite. And I'll be honest, at Chateau One, it was completely opposite. It was.
I'll take that off the line.
Yeah. Well, you know my background.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, those guys would rarely come into the golf shop and interact with our golf ops team. But at the Chimneys, it's completely the opposite. And I feel that because they feel a part of the bigger picture, they don't feel so separate when they're just tucked away in the maintenance building.
Yeah.
They feel like they're part of the whole, which is awesome to see.
Yeah. And I mean, really important building culture in a place. When you're talking about retaining staff, what's the number one thing? It's like, well, do you have a good culture or bad culture? Right. I think we've all probably been in both. So Scott, I mean, I'm looking at you. How have you built that culture and the staff in such a short term?
One thing I felt passionate about right away when we started was getting everybody, at the section level, we do comp surveys as well across all sections. So we have an idea based on the number of members we have, the amount of revenue we have, and similar positions across sections where we at. So it wasn't a one-year solution, and it's still not to where it needs to quite be, but it's building out a plan 3, 4, 5 years to get staff at certain levels compensated correctly. It's getting creative with, are there any other incentives we can add on to things? And so that's one of the biggest pieces we've done with the staff, is just try and set benchmarks and goals to get everybody to where they need to be. But also, I mean, we try and do activities together as much as we can. We have staff meetings when we are all in the office to simply check in on, and it's not going through business all the time, but it's, hey, where are you at, and what's going on? Do you have any trips coming up? How's the family? What are you guys doing? What are you thinking about? Although we haven't done it as much, and this one's on me, we did assign Carrie Ann to be our office manager, to be our CFO, our chief fun officer, to plan some outings for us and to do some things. But one of the things I'm probably most proud of that we instituted was committing to doing a staff retreat. And so we do it in October. The last 2 years we've gone up to Helen, Georgia. We get an Airbnb, big one, big house, and we go and do a nice dinner thank everybody for the hard work for the year. We have some drinks, we have fun. And then the next day, we dedicate the entire day to, okay, what went well this year? What do we need to improve upon? And then what ideas do we have to get better for next year? Michael will laugh at this, but probably my least favorite phrase ever is rinse and repeat. I cannot stand it. And there's scenarios when that's okay, but always looking at and evaluating how can we get better. And so, and after that, we have another nice night together, and it's just a chance to get away from the office, to get away from, you know, the hustle and bustle at home and with families sometimes, and for all of us to be together, enjoy each other's company, and really take a look at how we did throughout the year and how we can get better.
Okay, so I'm going to pull another audible. Actually, George, I forgot. I do want to hear. So you have a team, and
Yes.
you're part of a team,
Correct.
part of a big organization. So you see culture
Yep.
on your team, on the bigger team, and in the organization. Tell me about that. I mean, what do you try to create maybe for your team, and then what do you see the organization as a whole from a micro and macro standpoint? What do you see there that, you know, is beneficial?
So I'll go opposite with you. So from what I've seen from corporate-wise and through Mason and John and the guys out in Carlsbad, I feel like it's a very close group. We all feel like we could pick up the phone and call anybody. It's high up the ladder as you want it. But they do a lot of contests for us to keep us engaged, and a lot of pretty cool little rewards for winning the contest. From my team's perspective, I kind of like what Scott was saying.
We just met.
Like, try to call the guys weekly, you know, on the team and check in with them, see what's going on. And I have a budget to, you know, keep them rewarded with stuff, golf balls and shirts and hats and that kind of stuff. And then,
Sweet, I need a part-time job.
yeah, right. And also something that we do that when I worked for John that he did was let the guys play equipment on a sample account. Like, so they basically don't have to pay for golf clubs anymore, as long as, I mean, unless they have an attitude and break stuff like I might. I mean, you know what I mean? The guys like to buy stuff, and they have an opportunity to buy stuff at discount, but it's a limited opportunity. So I tell the guys, look, if you want to try something, you know, let me know, and let's.
To Elizabeth's point, take care of your people.
Right. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, we'll have a little get together, probably a little small outing, golf outing, and just cut up and have fun.
It doesn't always have to equate to pay increase either. I think most people really, it's more about recognition. And, you know, we had a guy the other day, one of our shop staff members, who just had a really good review. It was a public review on one of those social media somethings. And so I was like, pick out a shirt in the shop. You know, you deserve it.
That's
and,
awesome.
you know, it doesn't take a lot, but, you know, sometimes just that slight little recognition, they feel a little bit more engaged, you know, but that's little things that can make them feel a part of something good.
And one thing too, I know this is a lot harder when you're at a facility because you need people there, you need to be engaging, but we get a little, on our side of the job, for the most part, unless we're on site at an event, you don't have to be in office. You can do stuff while you're traveling. And so my expectation of staff has always been, hey, you know, take care of your work. Mm-hmm. If you do that and you're up to speed with that, I'm happy. And so we recognize all the holidays with days off. If you do have to work it or you're at an event, you get a floater day. We also, I tell the staff, although it's taken some getting used to, that after the second week in December, you don't have to be in office. If you do want to come in and that's how you work better and that works for you, by all means, but there's no expectation for you to be in office. I want you to be with your family and friends over the holidays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and at facilities, folks can be creative too. I mean, I was at Berkeley Hills yesterday, and Keith, his whole staff was gone. He was manning the fort and during our meeting, and it's no problem, you know, because his team it was Sunday afternoon, football time.
Yep.
So, no, that's great. All right, I told you I was going to pull a little bit of an audible here. So I expect everyone to be involved, okay? There's an expectation set. I want you to raise your hand if you have been part of one of these as an employee or done one of these as an employer, right? So have you been part of or planned a retreat, staff retreat at any of your facilities in the past? Raise of hands.
Does that include
Okay.
dinner?
What's that?
Like a dinner? Is that a kid?
No, this is like a full-blown off-property. Okay, how about a birthday party? Have you gone to get a cake for somebody?
Yeah, we do.
A card? Pass the bucket? What about, this was always my favorite, gotten a bonus check directly from your superior. Handed a check. Have you handed a check? You're the owner.
Yes.
Yeah, it's impactful. Somebody will look you in the face and hand you bonus at the end of the year.
You should try it when it's a pandemic and you're losing money. I have part ownership in a golf course
Yeah,
and everybody works just as hard as they do.
yeah,
No matter what it is. And you go to your partners and go, hey, we gotta give these guys a thought because you're losing money.
yeah. What did they say?
Those guys, we got to the bonus.
Yeah.
Every year. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you know, I mean
That's how
that,
you keep employees 10, 12, 14, 15.
yeah. And here's another creative one. I mean, we partnered at my last facility. We partnered with a clothing manufacturer, got a like a sweater that was kind of I guess from a previous season that they had overstock in. Still a good-looking piece. Got one of those for each of the employees, and had the Men's Golf Association sing them a Christmas song while we passed out the sweaters to the guys and gals. And it was impactful because, again, they got that feeling. And to get something from, I think, directly from your superior can be impactful. Okay. Who has played golf with their boss, their direct superior? Have you taken your guys to? Yeah, there we go. And finally, who has been part of any type of contest where it's sales, promotion, been part of a contest at their facility? Okay, so throughout that, we got at least half the hands going most of the time. So I thought that was pretty good. So something that kind of keeps coming up in all of these different breakouts, technology. George alluded to it a little bit from a scheduling standpoint. But Elizabeth, how do you at the Chimneys kind of utilize technology post-pandemic, keeping that post-pandemic theme in mind?
Yeah, I mean, when I came into the Chimneys, it was 2021, so it was kind of at the very tail end of when it was really masks were off by then, right?
Yep.
And I went head to toe for the whole facility and looking at ways that we could improve in our technology, and it started with our website. If you're not looking at your website daily, trying to update it and make it look, that's typically your first impression for all your customers. So if your website isn't up to date, isn't looking fresh and inviting, good photography, we brought in a professional photographer to come and take photos of the course, and we really beefed that up. So that was our first step, was our website. And then we did a complete overhaul of all of our systems. So it was new T-sheet software, retail POS, came in combo with an email marketing tool, and it was a complete game changer. Including with the T-sheet was a dynamic pricing matrix, so you could just set it and let it go on auto, and let it do its thing. I do tweak that on a regular basis, but like I said, it's the number one thing you could possibly do for your public facility is to go to dynamic pricing. But it was a matter of implementing all of these things that made our lives easier, made us look more professional. And coming from a municipal golf course, everybody has kind of in the back of their head what a muni would look like, right? What is a muni? And it's so important to me to try to change that perception, And so for us, it's definitely started with a website, and then we added your free technology, which is your social media platforms. We had Facebook, but we didn't have Instagram or Twitter. You know, we've added a YouTube channel now. So it's a matter of utilizing those things that are completely free to be in front of guests in every way, shape, and form possible, but do it in the right way, you know, and then keep up to it. If you don't have time to do it, dedicate somebody on your staff to do it, but it's so important to make sure that you are publicly in front of your guests in every way, shape, you know, any channel you can think of.
Yeah, it's funny. Up in South Carolina, there's a club called Thornblade, and they do a really nice job with their social media. And talking to them, it was all about getting the whole team involved. Another great way to engage staff. You know, most of us use social media at this point, but not all of us can keep up with creating content,
Yeah.
which is crucial, you know, for success on there. So that's
No,
great staff engagement.
One of our maintenance guys just bought a drone on his own dime, and I'm like, okay. So now they're taking all these videos that are like overhead. I'm like, this is amazing, because now we have all this great content to put on things like our new YouTube channel and stuff. But
That's awesome.
you know, but then they feel involved as well. And when I share one of their videos, you know, I think it makes them feel really good.
So after this, if anybody'd like drone footage, come see Elizabeth, and
Yeah.
she'll get you hooked up with our maintenance worker there. No, that's great. Karl, what about y'all? I mean, from your standpoint and the park standpoint, you know, what kind of technology do you guys utilize?
We've actually recently done an app for all the state parks, so it's gotten much easier, user-friendly for people to use their phone, so you can actually book tee time straight from your cell phone now, and that's to any state park course. So they've upgraded that. Similar to the drone thing, we did drone hole-by-hole coverage and did a narrative. So that was kind of cool, because you learn a lot about your own golf course when you take the time to write, you know, the description of how would you play it, and had pretty good feedback for that. Those are the two main things that stand out from there. We do some direct marketing because we've got such a large database. There's over 1 million people that are logged on with the state park system.
Wow,
So it's not hard to reach out and get to people.
that's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah. But,
You're like Las Vegas.
well, but of those 1 million people, 14, 15% may be golfers. I don't know,
Yeah,
but I do have access to them.
no, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
so we can target market for our area.
Yeah. And George, you kind of alluded to the scheduling of appointments. Are there other technologies outside of that that maybe you do have access to, or you know, is there anything you can think of that you know could potentially be changing in the future? I just know you had alluded to the scheduling part.
Yeah, the scheduling part has been a big part of it, and the team that Callaway has is we're constantly building and working on it. I think the biggest thing for us and Callaway is this Engage system that we have. So everybody on the team has it. It's an app. It's on their iPad, and the fitter is there with all of their information because they've signed up and a little description of what they're looking for. And then they're able to enter what they're being fit for, or their recommendation, if you will, to enter that information into the Engage system, which goes to the accounts, the club account, or Callaway Connect accounts info, and that information can be emailed to the FitE, if you will, so they can have that too in a nice little PDF format for what their recommendation was. And it's also a way that Callaway can track the sales that we're doing, the progress that we're making at these events. So the first few years, and I had to ask a few times, I'm like, it'd be kind of fun to know, like, how well did we sell a bunch that day or not? You know what I mean? The ones that didn't, yeah, I mean, I know the ones that walked away, but but it's kind of hard to track because they can walk off and go to a retail store or whatever with their recommendation. But we're really getting a lot more data in there now, and we are being tracked more, and that's fine. And we're really getting to see those sales numbers come up, and we're seeing big progress with that. Like, for instance, I think at the end of the second quarter, industry-wide, it showed that Callaway was up 3% at greengrass accounts. So, like, I kind of lit up a grin when that happened. That's a pretty massive number right there. It's not with all us, but sure we have a big part to do with that, right? As many fitting days as we put in and how much we sold and that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of tracking through that thing that's happening there.
There's a topic too, and I don't know if anyone in the audience has experience with this. Please speak up if you do. I guess one of the providers offers like a CRM. It's Golf Genius, free plug. But it's basically for special orders and stuff like that, so you can put POs in and track them. Has anybody used a program like that to track aging special orders? So if a bad rep, just doesn't put in the order on time, or the manufacturer's making it wait too long. Has anybody used anything like that? Shake head, shake head. Yes, no? Okay, yep, got it. Okay, so that's something that I've heard of. I think later in our 5 o'clock session, that will be a topic of conversation. Scott, from a PGA standpoint?
I think the biggest thing is just communicating and using the tools at our disposal to communicate better with our members. One example is our directory is completely on the app or online. Before, when we printed the big directory with the book, I mean, the second that thing went in somebody's hands, it was out of date because somebody's changed jobs. Or some line has got picked up by somebody else. So,
Whoa.
yeah, now we have the ability to have that in real time, as well as when you all change jobs. That's why in every weekly email that Michael sends, he's asking about those change forms, because once those get entered, the directory gets updated, and we can stay up to date on that. Maybe not popular with some, but we do all of our scoring mobilely at tournaments, and I had to come around to that, but I do think it's a useful tool. And the email updates, staying on top of it. Something as small as doing the birthdays for everybody in the section when their birthdays are coming up. I know I do a letter. I try and do it monthly, but just with personal updates from everything going on in the section. Michael has a drone as well. And then one cool thing that we added sort of on the board side was we call it the Georgia PGA Portal. So it is essentially a microsite for everything board document related. So it's got all of our important dates, it's got our board meeting agendas, it's got our booklets, committee chairs and their staff liaisons can go in and take notes from every committee meeting. When it comes time for them to give reports, they can simply enter it in there. So you're not having to go back and forth, share emails in Word docs, adjust the templates, things like that. And it's sort of like a roadmap for when you join the board. You can go here and follow along. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the topic that I keep hearing, and I know Scott and I kind of discussed last night, but one of the big things that seemed, my perspective maybe, seemed to come from the pandemic was, we all got busy. It wore down, a lot of folks. Everybody's been busy for a long time. That wave can go the other way quickly. This whole, thought of how we keep engaging people seems to be one, and how do we make our job and our industry more, something that people would, aspire to, right? When you put the PGA crest on, you aspired to that, right? You have a code of conduct, I mean, that's something that should be proud of. So when you think about, kind of how do we sustain this ride that we're on, both from a keeping folks, close. I know we've talked on a lot of topics, but I'm going, just kind of final thoughts on that.
Yeah, so with the position that we're at now, where we have a lot of customers, thankfully, that's a great problem to have. We have to obviously keep them engaged, but I look at what is most important to the customer first and what's going to give me ROI. If it is a capital improvement, then you as the PGA professional with your ownership have to find a way to help guide your owner to say this is most important and why, because it's important to the customer. You have to be able to spell that out. But thankfully, hopefully, most of our facilities are, have a little bit of excess revenue and net profit right now, that you can take advantage of that extra cash flow and say, this is important, you need to focus here. But always start with, does it have an actual return on investment that the owner then can see first? Nobody likes the idea of putting a new roof on a building because, that's not the
Sexy.
It's not the sexy fix. I was going to say that, but like, yeah,
Right.
it's not. It's
We'll
like,
take that
but
offline.
it's necessary, right? You got to have a roof that doesn't leak, but give the customer also something. And I go by a 1% rule. Every single day you can improve by 1%. So when a customer walks in, they say, "Ooh, that's new. Where did that come from?" Maybe it's a new apparel line. Maybe it's something as simple as, you know, I painted the bathroom today a different color because maybe it needed it. You know, whatever it is, it's something, ooh, I noticed that's new, and that you just care just 1% more every day. But, you know, we're in this great opportunity to take that extra cash and hopefully convince our ownership to reinvest in the property and our people, you know. Maybe the thing that really needs to be done is you've got a tremendous superintendent that you need to hang on to. So convince your owner to help maybe pay that person more, because you don't want to lose that person, because your number one asset at every single golf course is what? It's your golf course, right? That's where the customer spends, you know, hopefully no more than 4 hours of their
Most
day.
of their experience.
Right, but maybe, you know, we didn't touch on golf carts, but, you know, what does your fleet look like? Is it maybe give them that luxury seat because that's their home base for 4 hours of the day? It's not your clubhouse, you know, they're on the golf course. So, you know, keep an eye on your whole facility, what really needs to be touched on first to give you that return on investment, you know, first and foremost, and then continue to improve upon that.
Well said. Well said. Karl, that's tough to
Tough
follow.
to follow. But yeah, so to kind of echo what she's saying, definitely clean golf carts. They spend most of the time out there. Take advantage of your signage on your golf carts if you're trying to promote things. You've got a captive audience in front of you. A lot of you have GPS. We're actually heading in that direction this fall. Our carts will have GPS. So we'll be able to do a lot of instant messaging and doing some inner promotions for the facility, be it food and beverage or upcoming events. So really excited about that, because for the last 30 years I've been old school, making my own signs on a cart. You know, everyone's got the cart signage. So taking advantage of that while you've got them in front of you to get them to come back. How do you entice them to keep coming back?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I was at a resort course that right when you pulled up to the first tee, it had like this short video explaining the rules, but they like kind of made it funny, and it was a nice backdrop, and it was like when you're on the plane and they're you know, showing you how to buckle up. We've all seen it 1,000 times. We all know the rules, but they made it a little more enjoyable, and I thought it was a creative use of that GPS screen. Right when it came on, it had like the Augusta music, and I don't know how they got away with that.
Yeah.
All right, so overarching thoughts on how to maintain the wave that we're on, both for our customer and our people.
Yeah, so what I try to do is just create a great customer experience. Like from right when they get there, what they see. I'd like I have 10 of the fitting sets scattered all over the place, but for them all to be uniform and all to look very clean and very nice. So when somebody they're walking up to the tent to be fit, they see a nice presentation of Callaway, and then their entire experience there being fit is, I want them to walk away with, whether they buy it or not, they would turn around and like, that was cool. Like, that was a cool experience that we did, what I just had there about a tour fitting, if you will. And that goes the same way with which course we're at too. Like, they're our customer as well. So that experience for working the event onto the range, they're hosting the event, so make them have a great experience too. So that's a goal that I could do a little bit better at, but for me, that's how you get people coming back. You know,
Great
even the guy that didn't buy anything, I kind of like that Callaway guy. It was pretty cool. That whole deal there was fun. So I think that's a great way to do it.
You could probably translate that to any facility.
Yeah, right. For
They-
sure.
If they leave, even if they played bad.
Yeah, but if they had, yeah.
That last guy in the shop, he was funny. Simple, but man, how applicable. All right, Scott, you got 1 minute.
All right, well, to continue with this wave, it really goes to all of you. We're here at the section to serve you. You're our members. So the ways in which we can do that are continuously looking at how our business operates at the section level, and always ask ourselves the question, are we serving the member? Are we doing what the member needs to help continue with this wave that we're riding. And if that's introducing new programming, if that's offering more education, I think I will just do a quick plug tomorrow. Will Robbins is a great speaker who he lists himself as a coach, but he's really going to teach you how to manage your time efficiently and sell yourself. So giving you all tools on that piece and continually coming up with programs that may make working in the industry more exciting, and just opening our minds and evolving our minds to the days of you got to cut your teeth working 60, 70, 80 hours a week to break into the industry and work your way up that way. Maybe that's not the way it needs to be. Maybe we can evolve positions and get creative with our staffing and our scheduling to make this a great career path.
Love it. Great way to end. Okay, so thank you all for being part of this today. I want to thank the panelists. Elizabeth, thank you. Karl, thank you. George, Scott.